Hi everybody, I'm Andrew Locke. Thanks for watching another episode of Gaffer in Gear. In today's episode, we're going to take a look at the Amaran F22C and we're going to take a look at its little brother, the Amaran F21C. Now the F21C here also has the optional lantern on it. Right, so let's give you a quick run through of the capabilities of these units. So they are RGBWW mats. They have a CCT range from 2,500 Kelvin up to 7,500 Kelvin. And they are full RGBWW, DMX capability, and here's the best bit, they only cost $900 US. All right, so before we get into the review, I'm just going to give you a quick background story as to why it is that I'm reviewing this now, whereas everybody else that's reviewed it 6 months ago. All right, so for those of you who don't know, Amaran is actually an Aperture brand. It's their entry-level or low-cost product. Now, Aperture didn't want me reviewing this product when it came out because they thought it wasn't good enough for my channel or good enough for my viewers. So they just didn't send it to me. Now, about a month and a half after that, I had a young gaffer come around here to rent some equipment, and I had a look through his lighting van, and he had a couple of these. So I pulled them out of curiosity and had a play, and I was blown away with them. So I contacted Aperture and said, look, can you explain to me why, as a professional gaffer, you think I wouldn't be interested in this product, or why you think it's not good enough to get on my channel? And they had a list of things. So one of the things was the mounting system is really designed to go on a lighting stand. It's not designed for to be rigged so much. It doesn't have the CCT range of something like the light matte spectrum that's over here. It doesn't have built-in CRMX, it's not weather resistant, it only has 8-bit DMX profiling. So they were sort of the reasons that they gave me. So they didn't think it was good enough. So I gave them something to consider. I said, look, here's the scenario for me as a working gaffer. I own 4 of the light matte spectrums and I absolutely love them. And they've been a great light. I've got a return on my investment. They've been fantastic. But one thing these definitely are is expensive. All right, so quite often I'll be on jobs and I think, wow, I wish I had a smaller one so I could fit it up above the set just in there. It would be great to have a 2x2, but I can never justify the price of it. You know, the 2 foot by 4 foot here, which costs a fortune, I could justify buying this because this form factor is in high demand. It's going to get rented out a lot. I know I'm going to get a return on my investment, whereas 2x2, not so much. So that's the main reason I didn't buy it. All right, so what is the price difference between, say, a Spectrum 2 and the Amaran F22 here? Well, in Australian dollars, the price difference is about $3,700. So it's not a couple of bucks, it's a lot of money. And that really is the difference for me between owning a light that is in this form factor, 2x2 and full RGB, and not owning the light. So just one last thing to mention before I put the Spectrum back in its box. Both of the lights here, the Light Matte Spectrum 4 and the F22, are both 200 watt and they're both almost identical light output. Now this unit is slightly brighter, but only if you're measuring lux. If you're measuring f-stops, you're going to get the same numbers. All right, so let's go through how much things cost and what you get for your money. So I'm going to go through all the accessories as well as the lights in this section. So at the end of the video, if you decide you want to buy this stuff, you can come back to this section of the video and work out all of your budget at the same time. All right, so one thing that I think you should get, but you don't need it, you don't have to waste the money on it if you don't need it, is a lightning clamp. So the lightning clamp can be used to attach the controller to a light stand or to a lighting grid or to a menace arm or something like that. Again, you don't need it, but my preference would be to have this. So this sells for about 68 US dollars and 115 Australian dollars. But like I said, optional extra. Okay, the next thing is a USB-C to DMX cable. So if you're going to run DMX, you need this. If you're not running DMX, don't waste the money. All right, so this sells for 29 US dollars and about 45 Australian dollars. So to get the DMX to work, you have to plug into a USB-C, and this does have a screw here to secure the cable so that it won't come undone if somebody tugs on it. Okay, the next things are lanterns or pancake lanterns. So we've got lantern for the F21. That sells for $69 US and 109 Australian dollars. Now at that price, you're probably expecting it to be crap, but these are actually really good. I'll show you these later in the video. And we also have here a lantern for the F22, which is the bigger mat, and that sells for 105 US dollars, 145 Australian dollars. So I'll definitely be getting a couple of these. They actually are well built and they work really well, so surprisingly good value. Okay, next we get to the lights. So we've got the F21C. So I'll just explain the names. F is for flexible, 2 is for 2 foot, 1 is for 1 foot. So this is the 2 foot by 1 foot, and the C stands for color. They also have bicolor versions, which are way cheaper. Now I'm just going to show you the mat out of this. I'm not going to go through the whole contents of this kit because the contents are pretty much identical from kit to kit. They're just a different size. Plus I've also modified this light, so I don't want to show you the modified version. All right, but I will show you the light. Okay, so the light is, it's a flexible mat. So flexible, not foldable. Don't fold it in half. And this is full RGBWW. It's 100 watt, so that is something worth noting, 100 watt. And the lights come with a 3 meter head lead, permanently attached. And if you want to go further, there is an additional 3 meter head lead in the kit. So that's the F21. Okay, so that's the 2 by 1 unit. So that's 100 watt. All right, so let's have a look now at the F22C kit. So F22 stands for, F is for flexible, 22 means 2 foot by 2 foot, and C stands for color. All right, so this kit is the same size as the F21 kit. All right, so how do you get the 2 by 2 foot mat into here is the mat actually folds in half. Okay, so here's the mat. So it's 2 foot by 2 foot, folds in half for easy packing. Now this is 200 watt. Okay, 200 watt of RGBWW, so quite a bit of firepower. Okay, let's have a look at a few other things in the kit. So the first thing I'm going to want to grab out is the stand mount adapter. So this is these things are also called swivel and tilts, and umbrella adapters. So this is to help you mount the light to a light stand. All right, the next thing I'm going to grab out is, I call it the exoskeleton. So this is the thing that gives the mat its shape and enables you to mount the mats. So how this works is you pull these levers up, spring-loaded levers or spring-loaded releases, pull that up and push the rod into place, and then it'll click and lock into place. So this is easier to do with the exoskeleton facing downwards, so not the best thing to present on camera. Now one thing I would suggest, I found the hard way, is in transportation, these can unscrew, the top can come off. So you can be looking through the kit trying to find the top. So what I'd suggest is when you get these, unscrew them and put some Loctite in and then screw them back down. So Loctite, you can get it at hardware stores. Loctite is a liquid that stops screws from coming loose. All right, so now we've got our exoskeleton roughly in shape. The exoskeleton connects into the corners of the mat. So you just feed it through here and into the rigid corners. So pretty much like this. Now it is a struggle to do it standing up like this, so I'm just going to put it lying down, which means you can't really see what I'm doing. Now at this point, it might be a little bit bent out of shape. So just bend it back into shape. Apparently that is normal. So it's okay to bend the, I won't call them rods. It's okay to bend these back into shape. All right, now we want to mount it onto the stand. We've got a receiver section here, and we've got 2 pins to use in the receivers. So you've got a choice of a bent pin or a straight pin. So bent pin works best on the lighting stand. So you put that into the receiver there, lock that down, and now you're ready to put that onto your light stand. All right, so now we've got the light onto the stand. Now you can use it like this with raw LEDs, but you will get quite a bit of multiple shadowing if you're working in close. So you want to put the diffuser and softbox into place. So let's have a look at the softbox. So the softbox is quite well built. It's very rigid. and quite strong and has some nice reflective material in it. Now when you're putting it on, just make sure that this section here that has the cutout lines up to your cable at the bottom, and this just velcros on quite simply. And now we're ready to put in our diffusers. So you get a choice of 2 diffusers. You've got a light diffuser, which is a grid cloth, and you've got a dense diffuser, which is pretty much like a magic cloth. I'm not sure if it is a magic cloth. If it isn't, it's a very good copy of a magic cloth. Okay, that's our light build. Now the next thing in the kit, you've got an additional 3 meters of head lead if you want it. There's 3 meters already on the light, so you can have up to 6 meters. Now the next thing in the bag is the controller. So the light is pretty useless without the controller. This is the brains. Okay, so with this, you can mount it directly onto your light stand with the cable that's here. I don't like doing that. I don't like having things rocking around. So I would probably suggest getting the lightning clamp, but you can just do it cheaply like this if you want. Now the connectors are very good. It just clicks into place like that. If you want to unlock it, you twist it and pull it out. So it's not going to accidentally undo on you. Now you also get a power supply. Now the power supply is supplied with a V-mount. Now the controller does have a V-mount battery option on it. You're going to need, for a 200 watt mat, you're going to need a serious V-mount battery. So you don't have to buy a V-mount adapter, you can plug straight on. And in this case, we can put the power supply into that slot and connect the power supply directly into the unit. So we've got some a very nicely, neatly contained package. And you also get your regional power plug. So I'll just plug this in and then we'll get on to the next thing. All right, so I've got it all powered up, and this is the spread of the unit with its full diffuser on. So the next thing I'm going to show you, which comes in the kit, is you get a control grid, which helps control the spread of your light. So what this does, it's like having hundreds of barn doors, and it reduces the spread to what I'm guessing is about 45 degrees. Now, quite literally, on the day that these lights arrived, they were straight onto their first job. The lantern really heroed and was exactly what we needed at this location. And having a small LED mat that I could color match to existing lights was absolutely fantastic. But mounting them onto a boom arm was a challenge. All right, so let's go through the pros and cons, and we'll go through the cons first to get those out of the way. And the big overwhelming con for me with this unit is the way the mount is designed. Now, it took me a little bit of time to figure out why we've got a straight pin and a bent pin. Now, the bent pin is for use on lighting stands, and the straight pin is if you're going to go into something like a grip head. All right, so just let me explain that to you. So if you're using the straight pin on a lighting stand, you can't tilt any lower than this. The most you can tilt is 90 degrees. And that is regardless of which hole you put the stand mount into. So if I put the stand mount into the side hole here, I still can't tilt any lower than that. I still can't go past 90 degrees. All right, so now I've got the curve pin in and we can tilt the light down. All right, so let's have a look at the issue I've got with the straight pin. So if you want to put this into a grip head, I'm guessing that is what the straight pin is for. Now, for me as a gaffer, why I would want to use this into a grip head or have a lightweight mat like this in the first place is so I can use it on a boom arm. And one of the things I like to do is have the light stand near the camera so it's not going to get in shot, and have the boom arm coming out into the set. So if I was going to rig a backlight here, I would want to be able to tilt the light back in this direction. And where this is mounted and the fact that this pin has no articulation, it doesn't allow me to do that. So as you can see, the light gets in the way. All right, so you're probably thinking, well, there's a simple solution to this, Andrew. Just take the pin out and use something like an articulated arm. Well, the problem we've got is a 3/8 mount doesn't fit into the receiver here. The receiver here is not 3/8. The pins that connect into the receiver are 3/8, but the end that goes into here is not a 3/8. It's actually smaller. So that really limits you in terms of how you can rig the units. But here's the thing. The quality of the light that comes out of these is superb. It's better than I get out of any other lightweight mat. And the price point is at the point where I didn't want to give up on these. If these were like, $2,000, $3,000, I'd just give up at this point. But I've decided to come up with a solution because I really want to use these mats. So here's my solution. The receiver here is just screwed in. So you can unscrew it and replace it with a standard 3/8 receiver. Now you are going to have to drill a bigger hole to get this to mount. So that's what I've done on the other mat here. So it's got a standard 3/8 receiver. So now I can fit things in like magic arms or any of our 3/8 studs or anything like that. Now, what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to invest in a articulated arm for each one of the mats. Now the stand mount point here, I'm going to use that on this side of the articulated arm. And I'm going to use that so I can mount it to my boom poles. And now I can fit the articulated arm straight into the mat. And I've got all the movement that I need to have in order for this to work. Now with the arm here, I've got enough length that it will work if I do the same thing with the 2x2 here. So now I can position this light so that it's angled back towards the camera, and I can use it as a backlight and keep the stand out of shot. Now take this setup for example. Because of the way I've modified the light, it's really simple to do. All I do is put the articulated arm into a floor stand, put that on top of the cupboard, chuck a shot bag on top, and I'm rigged. Now you've also got heaps of other clamping options that can fit into the articulated arm, such as, what's that called, a Cardellini clamp with a receiver, Maffer clamps or super clamps. But here's one of my personal favourite tricks. This is something I discovered a while ago. Now, with a 3/8 receiver, if you remove the thread, so take that out and be careful not to lose the screw. If I remove the thread, the outside of the receiver is now the same circumference as an eye-footage clamping system. So now I can use all of my small clamps with this unit as well. Because sometimes a magic arm might be a bit big. But because I don't have a lot of leverage now, because this is a way smaller arm, I can use things like my magnet kits. So with a little bit of modification, you can turn this into a versatile little lighting system, and not just the convenient fold-up soft light system that it currently is sold as. Now the next possible negative is with the controller box. It does have a fan, and the fan runs all the time. Now in terms of how loud the fan gets, I think it really comes down to how you've got the box mounted. So what I suspect is happening is that the fan is making the casing resonate. And if you've got it mounted hard to a light stand like I've got here with a clamp, it does seem to amplify the noise a little bit, but this is about as loud as it seems to get. Now let's get on to the next negative, and that's to do with the DMX. Now to run the DMX you need a USB-C adapter to 5-pin. Now that's not the negative. It's not really that big an inconvenience to put this adapter cable in. And it does thread in nice and tight, so it's not going to disconnect from you if it does get a tug on it. But here is the negative. Because you're using the USB port to now feed your DMX in, if you're running a Lumen radio receiver, you cannot use that USB port to power it. Now the next thing isn't so much a negative, but it is worth pointing out for gaffers, and that is you do have a limitation of 6 meters of head lead. Now the lights do have 3 meters of head lead permanently attached to them, which is more than enough to get up to probably the top of your largest light stand, and the lights are sold with an additional 3 meters of head lead, which is probably enough to get through the average length boom arm. But if you do need to use more than that, I would suggest getting the aperture clamp here, which is called the lightning clamp. Now this very neatly mounts to the controller. Your power supply also very neatly mounts to the controller onto the V-mount. So everything is all together as a very nice package. So if you do have to attach it to a boom arm, it is very convenient and very neat to do. All right, so let's go through the pros with the unit now. And the biggest pro with this unit is the color render scores. So anywhere below 6,500 Kelvin, so from 6,500 Kelvin all the way down to its base Kelvin of 2,500 Kelvin, this thing has a TN30 color vector score of 95 plus. So it's scoring 95s and 96s. Now the lowest color score that this thing has is a 94, so that's above 6,500 Kelvin. Now the next thing that's very impressive with this is its white point accuracy. It has got better white point accuracy than a lot of mattes and lights that cost $5,000 or $6,000. Now when you're using it in its low CCTs, say like 3,200 Kelvin, it is tracking almost perfectly on the Planckian curve. So what that means is it's going to match perfectly in terms of its white point things like incandescent bulbs and tungsten lamp heads. Now if you're running it in daylight, it tracks very close to the daylight curve, which is where our camera standards like D65 and D55 are located. So what that means is you don't have any color hue with this light. It is very, very pure white. Now the next big plus for me with this light is it has DMX. Now if you had a look at the DMX about 4 or 5 months ago and you weren't that impressed with it, have another look because they've done some substantial work in their firmware since that point. The original DMX was pretty rubbish. All right, so you've got only 8-bit profiles, but you've got good profiles. You've got your individual profiles like CCT and HSI. You've got crossover modes like CCT HSI and CCT RGB. And you've even got profiles with Lee and Roscoe gels libraries. All right, so let's take a quick look through. So I'm currently using the CCT HSI crossover mode. Now I can dial in any Kelvin I like. I can add a plus minus green value to that. And then I can dial in a color hue to whatever CCT I've added. Now this brings me to the next point that I want to mention, and that is that this matte, unlike other matte products that are out there that are RGB, this is a fully integrated RGBWW engine. So what I mean by that, it is not a bicolor light that just has RGB slapped on top. So let's go back again to the CCT HSI crossover mode. So once I've dialed in whatever CCT I want and then crossfaded in whatever color I want to put over the top of that, if I now dim it, the whole lot dims together. It's fully integrated. Now have a look at how smooth the dimming on this light is. The DMX is very, very well thought out. Now the next big plus for me is the build quality of the mats themselves. Now I'm not a huge fan of the exoskeleton, but the mat itself is very well built. Where the cables go in, it is extremely well reinforced, and the LEDs are very well protected. Now here's a big point of difference between this and other mats that I own. So I've done an extensive amount of testing with a color spectrometer, and what I've found is that the light engine has been calibrated to work through the diffuser. So unlike other mats where you get your best color render results and your best CCT accuracy without the diffuser on, this is calibrated to work through the diffusers, which is how we are going to use them. The next big plus is the user interface. It is pretty much identical to the user interface that's on your Aperture Novas. So you've got lots of control. You can select things like your dimmer curves, stuff like that. So I'm not going to bother going over that in today's episode because there's no gotchas. There's nothing there you have to worry about. It is very straightforward and easy to use. The real only difference between the user interface on this and the user interface on the Aperture Novas is the gels mode. So in the gels library on the Novas, you've got things like Lee and Roscoe gels, whereas the gels library on this is very prosumer. It's only got things like primary, secondary colors, CTOs and CTBs. Now one huge improvement in the menu system here, which I'm finally really happy that Aperture have done, is as soon as this thing receives a DMX command, it switches over to DMX mode. How good's that? All right, so let's take a look at the optional lanterns, or it's more to the point, these are called pancake lanterns. All right, so a pancake lantern means it's only half a lantern. So the advantage you have with these is you can fit them into a low ceiling space where you otherwise can't fit a full circular lantern. All right, so the kits come with a bag, which is got Velcro at the one end, so very easy to get into. All right, so you get a skirt for it. So the skirt controls the spill of the light, and of course you get the lantern. Now the lantern is very simple to set up. There's only one thing that you can possibly mess up when you set up the lantern, and that is having the wrong edge or the wrong side of the lantern when you're setting it up. So what you want to do is make sure that this divot here, this gap, is on the side that the cable's on. That's the only thing you could possibly mess up. All right, let's take a look. So it literally just Velcros straight on. So that's one edge done. It's a second edge, a third edge, and our fourth edge. Okay, so that's the lantern mounted. All right, let's take it up. All right, let's fire it up and have a look. So we've got a full, not just bicolor lantern here, we've also got complete RGB. How cool is that? All right, let's take a look at the skirt. And much the same as the lantern, there's only really one way that you can mess this up, and that is to set up the edges the wrong way round. So make sure you've got this edge, which has the gap, on the same side as the cable, and it just Velcros on. Let's take a look. All right, so that's the one side done. Second side. Third side. And our fourth side. Okay, so at the moment, it's acting like a snoot. We've got all four sides containing the light source. All right, so let's turn that on now. Okay, and as you can see, it's very well controlled, doing a great job for us. Now, the thing with this lantern is it's got four sides, and you can adjust all four sides separately. Okay, so all four sides are zipped, so you can just undo the zips. You've got a solid edge here that is Velcroed, so you can start rolling up your edges to suit the shape or suit the control that you want to get out of the lantern. All right, so now I've got that pointing towards me, but not lighting up the background so much. Let's take a look at that. Okay, that is very cool. All right, so let's have a look at how this unit responds to DMX, and it's very impressive for the price. All right, it does very, very smooth automated cues. So have a look at this. This is a 2.5 second cue. There's no shimmering there at all, no juddering. It is absolutely beautifully smooth. But the thing to bear in mind with the price point of this, you are not paying for the fastest processing. So it does lag about 1 second behind in its cues compared to other lights. So let's see how it goes compared to a Titan tube. Both lights will be receiving their commands at the same time. Let's start off with instant blackout commands. Now let's do half-second fades. Now let's do 1 second fades. Now let's do 2.5 second fades. And now 5 second fades. Now let's have a look at instant CCT switchovers between 3200 and 5600 Kelvin. Now the same with a half-second queue. Now the same with a 1-second queue. Now a 2.5-second queue. And now a 5-second queue. Now let's have a look at instant changeovers between CCT and HSI mode. Now the interesting thing to note is when you change over to HSI mode, the Amaran is behind. But when you change over to CCT mode, the Amaran is in front. Now let's have a look at a half-second queue. Now let's have a look at a 1-second queue. Now let's have a look at a 2.5-second queue. And finally, a 5-second queue. Okay, so let's take a look at my test results, starting off with AC power draw. After several days of testing, the maximum power draw recorded was 254.9 watt. At 3200 Kelvin, I recorded 237 watt, and at 5600 Kelvin, I recorded 238 watt. Here are the brightness readings at a distance of 3 meters with the full diffusion. Here are the brightness readings at a distance of 3 meters with the light diffusion. And here are the brightness readings at a distance of 3 meters with no diffusion. Here are the CCT average accuracies, and the higher the target value, the more the light is out. Between 2500 Kelvin to 3000 Kelvin, it is accurate to typically plus or minus 34 Kelvin. Between 3100 Kelvin to 4000 Kelvin, it is typically accurate to minus 20 Kelvin. Between 4100 Kelvin to 5000 Kelvin, it is typically out by minus 45 Kelvin. And between 5100 Kelvin to 6000 Kelvin, it is typically out by minus 166 Kelvin. Here are the TM30 color render scores. Between 2500 to 3000 Kelvin, it averages 95.8. Between 3100 to 4000 Kelvin, it averages 95. Between 4100 Kelvin to 5000 Kelvin, it averages 95.1. And from 5100 Kelvin to 6000 Kelvin, it averages 95.7. Now let's take a look at our white point accuracies measured in delta UV. Between 2500 Kelvin to 3500 Kelvin, the light is tracking the Planckian curve to an average of minus 0.0004 which is nearly perfect. Between 3600 Kelvin to 5000 Kelvin, the light starts to leave the Planckian curve and heads up towards the daylight curve, which is why I can't give you an average. Between 5100 and 6000 Kelvin, it comes in with an average delta UV of plus 0.0030, which places the light almost on top of the daylight curve, which is where our camera standards like D65 and D55 are located. All right, let's take a closer look at some of the kelvins, starting off with the lowest kelvin that we can dial in. When I dialed in 2500 Kelvin, I got 2544. The TN30 colour vector results were 96% average colour accuracy with an average 102% colour saturation. Here are the CRI scores, and everything is above 90. Here is the spectrum distribution, and the white point is very accurate with a delta UV of minus 0.0004. When I dialed in 3200 Kelvin, I got 3193 with an SSI score of 85. The TN30 colour vector results were 95% average colour accuracy with an average 104% colour saturation. Here are the CRI scores. R9 and R11 are below 90. Here is the spectrum distribution, and the white point came in with a very accurate 0.0003 delta UV. When I dialed in 4400 Kelvin, I got 4369. The TN30 colour vector results were 95% average colour accuracy with an average 103% colour saturation. With their CRI results, R9, R11 and R13 were below 90. This is the spectrum distribution, and the white point came in with a delta UV of plus 0.0019. When I dialed in 5600 Kelvin, I got 5451 with an SSI score of 74. The TN30 colour vector results came in with 95% average colour accuracy with an average 102% colour saturation. Here are the CRI scores, and only R12 is below 90. Here is the spectrum distribution, and the white point came in with a delta UV of plus 0.0028, which would make the light green to the equivalent of a 1/8 correction gel from the Planckian curve, and place it almost, but not quite, on the daylight curve. When I dialed in the top Kelvin of 7500, I only got 7041. The TN30 colour vector results were 94% average colour accuracy with an average 100% colour saturation. Here are the CRI scores, and only R12 is below 90. And the white point came in with a delta UV of plus 0.0025. All right, let's take a look at how accurately this light dials in a colour vector. Red, which should be 0 degrees, came in at 1 degree. Green, which should be 120 degrees, came in at 118 degrees. Blue was smack on at 240 degrees. Yellow, which should be 60, came in at 67 degrees. But as with all RGB lights, I would suggest dialing in 40. Cyan, which should be 180 degrees, came in at 190 degrees. And magenta, which should be 300, came in at 285. All right, so that's another gear review done, and I think my opinion on this thing is pretty clear. I think it's a ripper little unit, absolutely fantastic value for money, and it gives you fantastic results. The only thing I don't like is the mounting system, but for the price, I'm willing to go to the effort of changing that out. I'm Andrew Locke, see you on the next episode of Gaffer in Gear.